Welcome back to Fast Monty's Garage. This is episode 4 of our chassis stiffening project where we're trying to get max performance out of our old school A body frame. This is applicable to B body, G body, C10s, Tri-Five Chevys, or maybe more. Leave a comment if you know of more, but it's mostly GM products that have the body on the frame. So if you're brand new, go check out episode 1 where I wanted to figure out if we could install this by keeping the body on the frame. Most of these aftermarket chassis stiffening systems are designed to be installed or welded in with the body off the frame. So we're doing it with the body on in true Fast Monty's Garage style. And today I'm excited because we get to put it back in permanently, reroute our lines, brake line, fuel line, parking brake cable, bolt it in. We'll talk about that when we get to it. And take that after measurement. And we're going to use one of my favorite tools I'm going to show you in a second. But if you haven't done so, subscribe. I could do a ton of these projects in my home garage. This is all DIY, and you can apply these techniques to your ride. Doesn't matter if it's modern or old. I go through it all. And most of the time, I don't know what I'm doing. So that makes it fun for everyone. And if you haven't done so, consider supporting the channel. Get yourself a hat. There's a link below for that too. But let's jump into it and let me show you the MIG welder I'm using today. So here's the MIG welder I'm using. I got it from Yes Welder. Those of you following the episodes know how much I love this thing now because I used to do a lot of TIG welding. This is my first MIG welder. I love it, especially for hobbyist use. This is their mid-range product. You can go hit up their website below. I left a link and a discount code. So go check that out. Have fun shopping. The other tool I'm not using today, which I love, is their plasma cutter. So go check out episode 1 and 2 if you missed those because I use it extensively like cutting butter. It's awesome. So before we get to welding that frame brace into the stock chassis, the reason I want a MIG welder here and the reason you need one is very tight quarters along the top seams that I showed you in episode 2. Now, before we can't just go slap that in. We have to do some prep work. So let me show you what prep work is needed. So in episode 2, when I was mocking everything up, I didn't film this, but I marked with a white Sharpie areas where our brackets are touching the frame. We need to clean that off to bare steel, kind of like what that looks like. The issue is this is POR 15. It doesn't come off that easy. It's almost like powder coating, but we need to clean off all the areas to bare steel. And my favorite tool to use is actually a die grinder with a Scotch-Brite wheel on it. So this is like kind of like a flat disc. It screws right on. And you can get these in a bag of 30 or whatever from Amazon. Really nice to use. I'll leave a link below for that. But we also need to do the same treatment to the brace. Let me show you the brace. Now you know why I masked this area off, because I don't want to clean off POR 15 from those edges. It's painful, and when we weld, it's going to be super hot and it's going to melt the paint anyway. So I now have to take that same flap disc and do the same treatment on all the edges, even the back. I want as few contaminants as possible in my weld. This is going to take me a couple hours. I'm not going to film it. I'll show you the results when I'm done. All right, where I couldn't get with the Scotch-Brite wheel, the old-fashioned way, sandpaper. So 120 grit, I got all that cleaned off. Looking awesome. Yes, it took me 2 hours. So now it's time to get that frame in here. Okay, here we go, guys. I have taped the back, double taped the back because I want to scratch it. It's fresh paint. And I'm gonna tilt it up, slide it over underneath the car, and I think it should span both lift ramps, so I can just put it on there and then go under the car and put it up with my transmission jack. A question came up a couple episodes ago. How much does this thing weigh? That's a fantastic question. I weighed each component individually before I welded this in. The total is remarkably 70 pounds. So it's a little awkward, but not too bad. So here we go. Enjoy. It's freaking backwards. I gotta turn it around. Nice. Besides from being backwards, now I can get under the car and pull it over, and I think it'll rest on the lift ramps. Here we go. Hell yeah. Step 1 complete. Okay, here goes nothing. I have my motorcycle lift, which I use as a transmission jack to lift up the back of the frame. I'm going to lift up the front. Something I didn't tell you earlier, the transmission brace, I actually measured this width when I took it off to paint, and I reset it 1/8 inch shorter, so that should give me some flexibility with the front end to get up into the mounting points. And if it sticks, I can always shorten it, because these are actually I can actually move them in and out about 1/2 inch, which is fine. And when we bolt it in, then we'll go from there. Here we go. And it's foot powered, so I can just kick it. Way to use your head, Mike. Oh my God. Okay. Are we in? Sweet. Oh yeah. Just gotta get the back up another 1/2 inch, put those retaining bolts in. Oh man, it's coming together. Hell yes, boys and girls. It's all bolted in. We're not welded yet, but that is the next step. So let's get going. We're almost ready. This is not an illusion. I have a spreader right here, because where this attaches to the frame or gets welded to the frame, I left a little bit of gap because I wanted to be able to take it out. Remember, we were mocking it up a few episodes ago? So that's intentional. So I have a little bit of preload, spreading them apart, getting closer to the side rail so we can weld them in. Now, I get to use my Yes welder, MIG welder, to add some tacks at every point where we're touching the frame. Then I'll re-inspect, probably take the bolts out, and then start adding bigger beads. I don't want to exceed 2 inches, basically, because you're still adding a lot of heat to the frame. You don't want to warp anything. And that's okay, because we have a ton of area to work with. We can actually bounce around from point to point. So as you're done at one section, the section you did 10 minutes prior should be cool enough to add another bead. At least that's my plan. So I'll gauge it as we go. This will be in fast motion for you guys, and I'll show you the end result. Welding is complete, and as you can tell here, I did beads of like 1.5 inches, 2 inches at a time, and the difference in quality. Remember last video that I did the welding and these welds look like crap? I have determined that's because of contamination in the frame. That's nasty. So there's contamination that you just I couldn't remove. So call it oil or grease or 50 years of crap in the steel created these crappy welds. But when it was brand new steel, nice beads. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my flap disc grinder and clean up a couple of the crappy welds, and then I'm going to coat this with POR 15. So my last video I did on this subject, I sprayed it. This time I'm gonna do the same prep work, but I'm gonna brush it on. So when we come back, this will be all glossy black. I'm trying to get everything in one shot. I got everything put back together. Obviously gloss black, POR 15, hand painted. Everything looks like it almost came from the factory. Now, a couple things here. I was able to rebend the brake line, and a couple of you pointed out that if this didn't work, you can actually buy a new brake line for a convertible, because convertibles have the frames boxed in, so they don't have the step up here that I was able to tuck away. Got the fuel line put back in, got the brake line put back in, and it fit fine. I just had to trim a tab off of the lock clip, and wow, we are almost there. But we have one more challenge ahead of us. We need to talk about that body bolt. Here's what I'm talking about. We're supposed to drill a hole and put a 3/8 inch bolt through the body. This is the brace underneath the body, into the cabin. And I think this is just under the seat on each side. But the conundrum is, do we do that before loading the transmission and its weight on here? like a preload, or do we bolt it first and then load the transmission? Let's see how much it sways. Let me put my body weight on here. Full body weight, and 3, 2, 1. So as you can see, it does give just a tiny bit. So, gosh, I think what I'll do, I'm just going to go the route of loading the transmission first, and then we'll bolt it and shim it to the body. So let's get that transmission mounted. All right, team, here we go. So I have a new energy suspension small mount, they call it, in here. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's bolted to the transmission. It's not super tight, but you can see it's loose. What we're gonna do now is I want everyone to pay attention to this point, because I'm gonna try and slowly lower the transmission, but my jack will probably go pretty quick. And let's see if this point deflects and by how much. So here we go. Did it move? Did it move? I wasn't even paying attention. So ooh, sorry. I might have to replay the tape on my own, but it's fully loaded. There's nothing holding up the engine. And I probably should have taken a measurement. Oh well. I'll tighten it all up. All right, now that the transmission's in, I'm gonna go ahead and do the passenger side first. I'm just gonna use it as a guide for my 3/8 drill bit. Just go straight through, and when I break through the floor, I'm gonna stop. I have Dynamat up there, and it's nasty stuff. It sticks out of everything, so that's one reason I'm gonna be careful. But the other reason I'm doing the passenger side first is the other side is really close to the wire harness that runs underneath the carpet on the floorboard. How do I know that? Well, I built this car. So the wire harness is on that side, and that's the stock location. So if you're doing this on an A body, that's probably what you have to contend with. So I'm gonna do this first and see how it goes. All right, through the bottom of the brace. Oh, there's the Dynamat grossness I was talking about. Yeah, it's sticky, nasty, everything gets on it. So it might be a miracle if I punch through the carpet. Maybe that'll help us out, because I really don't want to take the seat out either. Oh man, there we go. All right, good news, bad news. I punched through the carpet. That's the good news. The bad news is I punched through the carpet. Yeah, whenever you go through carpet like that, you have the tendency for it to unravel over time. So I'm weighing my options here. One, do I take the seat out and take the carpet up, bolt from the actual floor, or do I just put a couple big washers on here and compress the carpet? And I think I'm leaning towards compressing the carpet. So let me see if I can pull that off. Well, that was easy. And I double washered it, as you can tell, so plenty of stress loading, call it. And let's get under the car and throw some fender washers in between that dog ear and the body. All right, so I got these 3/8 fender washers, and I like them because they're really thin, and we can use them like shims, so I can just keep putting as many as I can until I can't get any more in here. And the other benefit here is I can, with the door open, see if I can get 6 of them in here. 6 might be too many. Yeah, so 5's the lucky number. And so with the door open, I can reach the bolt and push it through here. Bam! And there is not a lot of room. That happens to be the magic number. I can't get any more in there. Sweet! I love it when the plan comes together. There we go. I'm mostly tight. If you guys recall the last scene, I only had about that much thread. So that's how much preload went through the carpet and the Dynamat. So what I'll do is I'm going to take some careful measurements for this distance from here to the side, because when I go to the driver's side, I'm going to feel around for that wire harness. It's about that wide, 2 inches wide, a whole bunch of wires from your fuse panel going to your trunk. So I'm going to go feel around for that, and if I'm confident, I'm going to do the same thing on that side. I will keep you posted, and then assuming I am good on the driver's side, I'll tighten the driver's side, come back and tighten this more, and just go back and forth, and maybe pick a lucky torque number. So here we go. I successfully got the driver's side in, just like we did on the passenger side, because it dawned on me, I totally forgot. Might as well tell you guys that have A-bodies, this indentation here, this wide indentation in the floor pan, is actually for the wire harness. So if your car was built similar to stock for the interior, that's where your wire harness goes, and that's where I put mine. So I was far enough away to not worry about drilling. So did the same thing, worked great. And now that we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and test all the stock body bushings to make sure everything's still tight, because when I was reviewing the footage, and you guys can do the same thing, go back to that before and after of the other side, you can see a couple things. One, this seam gets bigger, and I think that's because we're compressing this beam, so to speak, and that's pulling this flange up a little bit. So that's the change. And I also saw the body come down a little bit, and I don't know if that's suspension or if I move the camera or anything, but I will double check all that. So next thing here is I got to get the X pipe back in, and we will do our final measurement like we did in episode 1, where we test the rear height of the frame when we jack up the left side of the car. So be right back. Oh yeah, in like Flynn, as they say. I cannot wait to fire her up. It's been too long since I fired the engine, and this was a colossal amount of work, and I can't wait to test drive. So let's get this girl off the lift and get that final measurement. Okay, here we go. Remember, I have my calibrated feeler gauge. Tires are at 33 PSI, just like the last time. And I can barely get the feeler gauge under the front tire. Let's go measure that mark on the back. All right, our original measurement was 8 1/8 to the top of that line, right where it goes vertical on the crosshatch. Let's see what we got now. Almost 8 1/4. Okay, well, that's improvement. I was expecting more than that, though. Done. We proved we can do it with the body on. So if you guys have the courage or the balls to do this project on your own, make sure you have enough space to work under the car. You're going to be going back and forth a lot doing your test fitting, but we did prove it can be done. And it might even be a better method, because we were able to tuck that frame in right underneath the body to get the maximum ground clearance for my exhaust. So I'm excited about that. That 1/8" gain that we got, I was expecting more. So my thought is that rear frame brace that we put in between the two new rails was still flimsy. Like, even after I welded it in, I was moving it around to paint, I could literally go like this with the two rails. And so maybe in a later project, I'll dream of a way of strengthening that torsion on that rear brace, maybe adding a tube or something. I'll have to think about that more, maybe ask some questions of other people. No, the reason we didn't do a road test, because that's the ultimate test, right, is the car's not roadworthy. I say that because when we went autocrossing, the video before this playlist, I had an ignition or fuel issue. I don't know what it is yet. I haven't diagnosed it. So next episode, we're going to explore that. I'm gambling on ignition. I think it's the distributor. I have an HEI distributor. I think it got too hot. So we're going to diagnose that to make sure it's working, and probably replace some parts. So stay tuned. And if you haven't yet, get yourself a Yes Welder plasma cutter or MIG welder. I love those tools. They're fantastic for us DIY guys, not too expensive, and they work great. I can't wait to cut something up with that plasma cutter, because that was addicting. Whew! So until next time, build them fast, drive them faster. See ya.